Hello, church. Pastor Brent here. Just want to come together again with you this week to share from the book of Proverbs, chapter 22, verse 1 in the Proverbs devotion, which says, "A good name is to be chosen over great riches, rather than great riches, and favor is better than silver or gold." What I think Solomon's doing here is contrasting the immaterial with the material, which is also interesting because I think the Bible spends much more time dealing with the immaterial or immaterial aspects of life much more than it does with the material things of life. Now, there's a balance, obviously, but what do I mean by that? When I talk about material objects or material things, I think about things that have substance to them, things you can grab, things you can touch, things that you can feel. So things like home and houses and cars or relationships or money and possessions, those type of things are material things. Now, the Bible does deal with those things, no doubt about it. But oftentimes, the Bible spends more time talking about immaterial things, which are things that necessarily can't be touched, sometimes can't even be seen. But they can certainly be felt or they can certainly be experienced. Things such as faith, love, and hope, and mercy, and forgiveness, those type of things are things that are more immaterial objects and aspects of life. And the Bible spends more time dealing with those immaterial things in life than it does the material things of life. There's a balance of both. But one of the reasons I think why is because the longevity of immaterial objects as compared to material things. Now, material things are important for us as we live on this earth. When we got to eat and have clothes and a house to live in, cars and shoes, all those things. You got to have those things. They're all blessings from God if kept in check and balance. But they only are good for us as long as we are alive on this earth. And so they provide for us our existence on this earth. But immaterial things like faith, love, hope, and joy and love, those things, those provide for our supernatural, eternal existence. Those are qualities and characteristics of life that far exceed things of just the earthly life. Those are things that have eternal rewards and eternal benefits that lead to everlasting life. And so because of that, the Bible places a great emphasis on the immaterial more than it does the material, but yet there's a balance of both. And I think that here we see a compare and contrast of Solomon doing just that, a comparison of the immaterial versus the material. Notice he starts off with an immaterial aspect of life, which is a good name, rather than the material object of life, he says, which is great riches. But what exactly does that mean, to have a good name? Initially, you may think, well, it must mean that if you have the name Brent, or you have the name Michael, or Tony, or John, or Sarah, or Rachel, or Sally, that those names, because of that name is worth more than other names. Well, what Solomon's not talking about here is what I would say is the substance of a name. Substance of a name is a name given to identify who you are as a person, or you could say to identify what you are as a person. You're a human being, so you have a name to associate you're a human being. And so when at birth, whenever a parent gives birth to a child, they give it a name to identify what they are. This is a human being with a name to identify what and who they are in a sense. But that's not what Solomon's saying here, that one physical name is better than the other, worth more. Rather, when he says a good name here, the word here for good means good in regards to quality. It's the reputation, who the person is and how they behave behind that name. So it's not a physical name, it's the quality behind the name, the character and the reputation that makes up the person who goes by that name. So, for instance, if you have a spouse, a lot of times we may have names to identify not their physical name, but the character of who they are to us. So, for instance, my wife's name is Michelle. But in my phone, if you were to look when she calls me, it doesn't say Michelle when it pops up. It says sweetheart. And that's a good name for her because that's the character of who she is to me. She's sweet. She has my heart. So she is a sweetheart. So that name I've given her is a good name that describes the character and the reputation and the quality of who she is in my life. When I played basketball some 20 years ago down at the park here at Beechwood Park, I remember playing in a game and I hit a bunch of threes. And at the end of the game, this guy just stopped and says, "Man," he said, "you don't miss." He said, "From now on, I'm going to call you Cash Money. Your name is going to be Cash Calloway." That was, I said, 20 years ago, and still to this day, when I see this guy around town, he still calls me, "Hey, you doing, Cash?" Well, there he goes, Cash Calloway. That's a name based off a reputation he gave me. That's a good name for me, that when he sees me, he thinks of me in accordance to how I play the game of basketball. So a good name is not just the substance of a name, but the quality behind the name that describes exactly who the person is and their reputation. For instance, in John chapter 1, verse 47, that when Nathanael comes to Jesus, it says, and Jesus saw Nathanael coming toward him and said, "Behold, An Israelite in whom there is no deceit. Now Nathanael was his physical name, but Jesus also didn't just call him by his substance. He referred to his name as being good. The quality of his name was good because he says, here is an Israelite in whom there is no deceit. Nathanael had a good name not because of his physical name, but because of the character of who he was. We can read about Stephen in Acts chapter 6, verse 5. So, and what they said pleased the whole gathering, and they chose Stephen, that's his physical name, who was what? A man full of faith and of Holy Spirit. Stephen was his name, but the quality of who he was a man of faith and Holy Spirit. That made him a good name. That was a good name. So a good name is the character and the quality and reputation of a person's life associated with the name of and the identity of who they are. And so Solomon says that a good name, a life of character and reputation, is to be chosen over great riches. And notice he uses the word chosen, which means decided, which means elected. It means to select. That means that an attitude of character and reputation is not something that someone gives to us. It's something that we choose for ourselves. In as much as someone chooses to be rich, we choose to have character and reputation. And he says that's to be treasured and had over great riches, which means exceeding abundant riches. And I think that in our culture, we have it backwards. People will go for great riches at the expense of a good name. And oftentimes, if you don't have a good character that goes along with the great riches, it ends up not only ruining your reputation, but ruining your life because you don't have the right heart to be able to receive and hold it and handle it correctly. And that's why I think Paul would tell Timothy in 1 Timothy 4:10, the love of money is a root of all kind of evil. And it is through the craving that some have wandered away from the faith and pierced themselves with many pangs. And so a good name is to be had more than greater riches, to be chosen more than greater riches. But he also says, and favor is to be had more than silver and gold. So basically what he's saying is if you're a person who has a good name, character, and reputation, then what you gain from that is that you gain favor. The word here, favor, means pleasant. It means gracious. It means accepted. And so what happens is that when you live a life of character and reputation, other people around you, in a sense, begin to accept and give you respect. Now, not all the time, but in a general sense, people respect you because you're different and you are unique by your character. And so you get a different type of respect and people trust you and look at you differently. It's kind of like when you get a twisted ankle and it affects the way that you walk. When you have that twisted ankle, because it's sore, you begin to treat that ankle different than you do the other ankle. You begin to, in a sense, respect it. You begin to treat it gently. You don't treat it rough and rugged and running on it. You don't stand on it with all your weight like you do the other ankle because it's hurt. You treat it gently and with respect because you want to protect it, because you respect and love your ankle and your ability to be able to walk properly again. In the same way, when we walk with respect, people don't treat us the same as other. There's a uniqueness about us, and for some people, obviously, they will hate it and they can't stand it because their heart's full of sin. They hate any kind of holiness. But there will be other people who will trust you. They will find that they will lend you things they wouldn't anybody else. They will tell you things they wouldn't tell other people. Why? Because you have a reputation. You've gained favor in their life with you, and they'll give you opportunities that other people don't get to have with them. And so a good name blends favor, and not just in the sight of men, but also in the sight of God, who takes pleasure in noticing your life as being lived in separation and holiness to Him. That's why Proverbs 3:3-4 says, "Let not your steadfast love and faithfulness forsake you." That's character and reputation right there. "But bind them around your neck and write them on the tablet of your heart." And why? So you will win favor and good success in the sight of God and of man. So a good name is better than great riches, and have favor is better than silver or gold. But why? Why are those two things better than riches and any kind of gold? Good name and favor. I would say for at least two ways. One is that a good name is not easily forgotten. You see, great riches and names that are associated with great riches oftentimes are completely forgotten. They're in the moment very powerful and elite and have status and may have some weight to them. But the moment they die, people forget them, and years later, no one even knows who they are anymore. Oftentimes, people of great wealth who have riches that are known in the moment are oftentimes like balloons. A balloon is filled with hot air, but it's filled with hot air for one particular thing, and that is to be a decoration, and usually a decoration at a birthday party. And typically at a birthday event, balloons come in handy. As long as there is a party going on, the decoration of the balloon is needed. It looks amazing, and people like to look at balloons at a party. But once the party is over, no one remembers about the balloon. Oftentimes they get popped, or they can so easily go away. You give one to a balloon, you give a balloon to a kid, they walk outside, and then it's gone. It gets stuck in the fan, and boom, it's popped. But eventually, it just simply can just lose its air. Great riches, and the name of someone who's great with great riches is like that. Great riches fill your life up with all these great things, and oftentimes it's just a decoration to masquerade the emptiness of our own life. And as long as there's a party going on and people around, people will love you and they will be wowed by you and they will remember you in the moment. But when it comes to it, after the party's all said and done, and as your life begins to wrinkle away and you begin to deflate, or you begin to lose the grip of life and you begin to just float away, those riches mean nothing and you're so easily forgotten about. But a good name of reputation and character is like concrete. When concrete is laid, it's remembered for years and for years and for years and for years. And the great thing about concrete, like on a sidewalk, is that it leads a path. It lays a foundation upon people can walk on from years after to come that's not easily forgotten. And I pray that in our own lives, that the way that we live our life right now is like a good name with character and reputation, so that we become like a concrete sidewalk for our children behind us that they can walk in. That in turn, their own children can walk in. That in turn, their children. And the legacy of our life is that we've led a legacy of love and holiness and generosity and truthfulness. That we've left a good name that people can walk behind us on, that's solid and firm, that won't be easily forgotten about. But also, I think it's important that to have riches over a good name, because of the fact that not only is a good name not easily forgotten, but a good name obviously leaves an imprint. It leaves an imprint. Oftentimes when archaeologists want to do a study of a certain culture, and when they want to look at what a culture was like, 2,000 years ago, what they look for is an imprint, something that may have been imprinted or carved into a rock. And that carving lasts over time because it's imprinted inside of the rock and on the rock. It's remained there for thousands of years. That tells the character and the quality of life and what life was like back in those ancient civilizations. That's what a good name can do. It leaves a carving on people who come around you. It leaves an imprint upon them that remains in them as the years go on, and then leaves a legacy in their life to be passed on to others. That's what a good name can do. Great riches, they're fleeting and they go away very quickly. There's a story of a man named Butch O'Hare. He was a firefighter. He was a pilot in World War II, and he was flying with this company and forgot one time that he had forgot to top off some gas, and he had turned around to go back and fuel up again. But on his way back, he realized that there were several jet fighters, some Japanese platoons coming his way, airplanes coming directly at his fleet and at their ships. He didn't have time, because it was kind of a surprise, to call back or turn around and do anything about it. So in order to divert them, he flew his plane right into their planes and began to shoot at them and began to dive at them to try to hit them. And lo and behold, when it was all said and done, he had shot down nearly 5 planes and diverted the last couple ones away so that the American ship and the fleet did not get hit. Because of his act of heroism, he was given the first Congressional Medal of Honor ever to be rewarded to a man. But even in greater honor than that is that today, if you were to fly out of the Chicago airport, imprinted in front of the building and on the building, you would see the O'Hare Airport, which is named in the commemoration of this Butch O'Hare for his heroic act. You see, one of the greatest heroic acts that you will ever do in your life is to live a life of character and reputation, laying it down for your spouse, your children, and other people around you, that they may have life and they may live, so that you will be the means upon which they can fly and take off in life. And as they do, their life will be imprinted with the one who gave them those wings to fly by their character, and your name can be there. May we not trust in riches. May we desire to live a life of character and reputation, which has far-lasting impressions and imprints on a person's life than any kind of riches will ever do, and money can't buy. And for that reason, Paul would tell Timothy in 1 Timothy 6:17-19, "As for the rich in this present age, charge them not to be haughty, nor set their hopes on the uncertainty of riches, but on God, who richly provides us with everything to enjoy. They are to do good." That's character. That's a good name. To be rich in good works. That's reputation. To be generous and ready to share, thus storing up treasure for themselves as a good foundation for the future. that they may take hold of that which is truly life. May we desire to have a good name and win favor more than anything in this life. Blessings to you all.